everybody. My name is Pamela Ford, and I am the Executive Director of New Day Employment Network. We are the recipient of a Healthy Illinois grant given by the state of Illinois. And the purpose of the grant is to create dialogue around the topic of racism. We will be having multiple conversations in the coming weeks around this topic. Our topic tonight will be dealing with how racism makes us sick. I have assembled a great team. One of those people that I put together on this team is Tracy Carr, and we together assembled this diverse group of experts that's going to talk about how racism makes us sick internally and externally. Tracy, in her own right, is an expert in the field of health. She has been an expert in this field for over 17 years. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Tracy. She will introduce the panel, and then we will start this wonderful, robust conversation. Tracy?
Thank you, Pam. My name is Tracy Carr, and I just want to say welcome to all of our panelists and welcome to all of our viewers on Facebook. As Pam says, I've been working in the fitness industry for over 17 years as a personal trainer, group fitness instructor, and I'm very honored to be able to interview all of our professionals this evening, or this morning rather. Our focus today is health for the Black and Brown communities. And we want to also speak on ways to manage the stress that is incurred from racism and racial intolerance. We are going to be speaking on physical, mental, and even nutritional health. And we are also going to speak on specific ways we can combat this stress through daily practices and, strategic living mindfulness practices. So I would first like to introduce all of our panel members, and I'll give you guys each a chance to say a quick hello. I'm first going to start off with Dr. Tracy Womack. She is our advanced nurse practitioner, and she is also a senior director of a corporate healthcare organization. Hi, Tracy.
Tracy, thank you for today.
Yeah, thank you for being here. We're super excited to have you.
Wonderful, wonderful. I can go by Tracy, so that's fine.
Okay, thank you. And then we have two doctors with us today. Dr. Hector Zavala is our mental health professional. He is a licensed clinical professional counselor, and he has worked on lots of projects within the Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities. Hello, Hector.
Hello. Hi, Tracy. Thank you for having me today. And please call me Hector. I don't use the fancy doctor.
Thank you. Very down to earth, everybody. So yeah. I'm so very glad you guys are all very welcoming to me. Yeah. And last but definitely not least is Diane Barnes, who is our registered dietitian and nutritionist. She is also the current registered dietitian and nutritionist for the Joliet Area Community Hospice. And she has been working with dialysis patients for over 21 years. So hi, Diane.
Hello. Thank you for having me on this panel. I'm very excited.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for being here. So in preparation for this panel, myself and Pam did do some research into, certain areas of concern. And we did ask Facebook, what are some questions that you would most like us to ask our panelists? And there were 2 or 3 questions that we got repeated a lot. So I'm mostly going to be focusing on those, but I would also invite our panel, if you have something to say to piggyback off of what someone else has said, feel free. We're going to try to keep the answers, somewhat concise so everyone can have their say, but we also do want you to have your say.
Definitely. And so just one more quick thing, Tracy, the video clip. Had them watch.
Yes. Okay. So a few days ago, Pam did find a wonderful TED Talk from Dr. David Williams, and the topic of the video was how racism makes us sick. we did send that to all of our panelists, and we will also link the video below so you could have the opportunity as a viewer to watch this. A lot of our questions are also coming from this video and referencing some of the things that Dr. David Williams has said as well. So with this in mind, I'm going to kick it off with our first question, which is from Facebook. And I'm going to ask the first question to Tracy. How can stress, specifically stress that's caused from racial inequality, racial tension, how can that affect our physical health?
Yeah, so stress is a huge component of how our body manifests as certain exacerbations. Within the Black community, there's a lot of disease factors for hypertension, diabetes, morbid obesity, and those are contributing factors from stress. Stress releases something like a hormone within the body. I don't want to get too medical here. I just want to keep it pretty simple. Simplistically, stress releases hormones in the body that actually manifests hypertension. It actually causes hypertension from the stress induced. So when you have stress, specifically to the things that are unjust in the world, those are stressors that you really don't have any control over, right? So really what I would like to kind of focus my answer to the question is, how do we control? What can we control, right? Out of all the factors in this world today, the COVID-19 plagued our community, the social injustices of the killings of people of color have plagued our community, not only in 2020, but historically. So this is something that as Black people, we're trying to get past and get through. So the stress of that alone is really burdensome to our disease processes. So when it comes to hypertension, and when it comes to diabetes, when it comes to all the cardiac things that happens within the body for Black people, we want to make sure that stress is a component that we can control. How can we control stress? Some of the factors that I talk about today is going to be releasing and relaxing. How do you take time to separate yourself from what's happening in the community today, the injustices of the world? And how do you compartmentalize the factors for yourself? How do I take control of the stress? So some of the things I want to add here is, a lot of times we move towards reducing stress with things like substance abuse. We might move to overeating. We might move to actually taking some type of alcohol or substances that negatively impact our health. So those are the things that you really want to try to control during these times of social unrest and injustices. You want to try to take some time to yourself to say, hey, how can I myself impact my own health? It's a recent study out of NYU that was staggering with statistics. It did a study of over 500 US cities within the urban communities. And out of all of those cities, Chicago ranked number one of life expectancy early death. We have, ranked high within a lot of different things with shelter, within inadequacies of food deserts, also having the social exposure to chemicals, lead exposure, things like that can lead to early death. But I thought this study out of NYU was truly impactful because it really showed that the life expectancy in Chicago, we are dying 30 years earlier than other people. And that is huge. And a component of that, as they talked about in the study, is stress. So, stress sometimes is a silent killer, as most people might think of it as, because it's a thing where you don't know, you don't see it. It doesn't look like a rash. It doesn't show evidence of it, but it actually takes hold of the body, and it can truly manifest all those disease factors that you're plagued with today. So, for the audience today, I talk about simple steps. I don't want to, you want to say, okay, take your medications, exercise, eat healthy, do all the things right. But it's hard to do that within today's stressful society because of what's plaguing you. So how do you take one step at a time? So one opportunity at a time to combat the stress in the body, because that can truly, truly manifest in so many other areas of the body. One of the things I wanted to also kind of point out to the audience today is, facing those barriers to stress. How you say, okay, it's easier said than done. You say, okay, take yourself out of stressful situations, or try to do something relaxation to reduce the stress, but it's easier said than done in today's society. But you have to start to take control of your life and your health, because we are dying at early rates, and we want to make sure that we have longevity within our lives. So we want to do some things to, like, deep breathing, helpful mindful meditation, in order to combat some of the stress. Sometimes taking just a walk in order to reduce some of the stress that's compounding you today. Another component could be taking some time to journal. Those are the things that don't cost any money, but those things are some stressful, helpful techniques to reduce the things that are happening in our world today.
Wow, Tracy, I had no idea that Chicago was so high up on the list. A lot of what you said, I feel like fits with every other component that we are going to talk about today. You mentioned mindfulness. And I want to ask Hector the same question I asked you about, Hector, the same question, but in regards to mental health and mindfulness. Can you first explain, I guess, how racial tension and racism affects our mental health? And then can you maybe explain what mindfulness is? Because Tracy had mentioned that.
Yeah, and thank you. And sorry, I know Tracy says I can go by, but I will respect Dr. Womack after that Wall Street Journal article came out. I think it's absolute trash to say somebody who's earned a doctorate shouldn't be called doctor, but I respect that and value everything that you said. So thank you for especially the study from NYU. I think the first thing that we have to understand and consider, especially various studies in terms of psychology, and when we look at various studies, I mean, I was just reading a study a few minutes before our Facebook event that basically said, instead of, what we're seeing is these racial tensions and messages that are received throughout the lifespan. And so we're hearing this, and this is not new messages, right? These are not new things that are being said to us that are impacting our mental health. They're said to us from the womb until we die. Right. So as children, as babies, as these little fragile beings, we're hearing these negative stereotypes and these negative associations on a variety of different racial messages and a variety of different aspects. And this has occurred far longer than I've been alive. Right. So I'm not going to say that this is new. It's just been more prevalent because we have the ability to capture it now. Right, we have the ability to say, well, look, I have a phone and I'm turning it on and there's a camera, and I can upload this and quickly make this, seen by a lot of folks. And so it's one of those that we have to understand that these are systems that have existed for a very long time, and this messaging is not new. But our focus to understand that it is had a lifelong pervasive issue, as Tracy has mentioned, is without a doubt. I mean, again, this has followed us from conception to death. Right. And so we have to understand that what it creates depression, anxiety, this negative worldview where we start to look at the world in a very pessimistic lens. We start to say, well, where is anything good? Right. And we start to really outlash because we can't internalize that anymore. Right. We can't just hold that in and say, well, if I just wait it out, maybe it'll go away. It's not true. The longer we hold on to that, the worse it is for us in terms of a mental health perspective. It leads to these negative self-messages that we send ourselves, that we think about ourselves. It leads to this consistent fear that we are going to be attacked or that it's always going to be present. And so it's what we understand and know is that this is something that will continue to be harmful unless we take proactive measures, unless we take some of these aspects and start looking at mindfulness, for example, sort of an area of bringing to the forefront who we are and these positive things about ourselves. But we have to take a minute and stop, right? We can't just say, well, I'm too busy. The day is too much. I just got to keep going. No, we actually have to say, you know what? I need 2 minutes to get myself back into centered balance and really focus on me, and maybe just take a deep breath and let myself say, okay, this actually happened. I might not have the time I need right now, but I'm going to get back to this, and I'm going to make sure that I take care of this, because as Tracy has said, as Dr. Womack has mentioned, it is affecting us in a physical capacity. It is creating all of these physical factors that are just very negative for us. And so that breath can do so much for us in the long run.
Wow. That's amazing. And you guys have both mentioned breath work, mindfulness, and bringing yourself back to a place to where you can just, if you don't have 30 minutes to step away, at least you maybe have the space of a breath to separate yourself. I would also like to, I kind of want to stay with this theme of mindfulness for a little bit, because that seems to be so much of this. And I want to acknowledge Diane we know with the physical and mental stress that's happening, and the emotions and the possible depression and heart disease and all the other factors going into this. Diane, can you speak a little bit to mindfulness with eating? And sorry, I just kind of blipped out there for a second. I apologize. I'm going to make sure that all is good here. But Diane, I want to ask you to just speak a little bit about mindfulness as it relates to eating and making good food choices if there are no good food choices around you, or we find ourselves in this situation of COVID, where maybe the run was done on the grocery stores and there's just not a lot available to you right now. Can you sorry, I'm having some issues with my camera right now. But Miss Diane, could you please speak a little bit to the nutrition aspect of mindfulness and how to make some better choices, if not good choices, better choices?
Absolutely. I've worked with this a lot. I've given it a lot of thought, and mindfulness and our food intake. I mean, that's a marriage made in heaven. I mean, just like with breathing and other self-care issues. And years and years ago, I worked with recovering addicts, and one of the things that one of the coping tools that we taught with these recovering addicts was the acronym HALT. When you're under a lot of stress, or you feel like you could maybe slip into recurrence of your issues, is to stop and say the word HALT and ask yourself, am I too hungry? Am I too angry? Am I too lonely? Or am I too tired? That is a mindfulness practice right there, is just stop and take a little assessment of yourself. Notice the first word in that was hungry. And hunger causes stress. And if you're under a lot of stress and you add to that feeling overly hungry, and there may be financial reasons for being too hungry. There might be emotional reasons. There might be diet culture reasons where you don't feel worthy of eating a good meal because your body is larger. All of these things contribute to that extreme hunger, which is not good for stress levels. It's not good for weight management. It's not good for good nutrition. So I think there's, in this diet culture, there's so much information out there about what a healthy diet consists of. And, I don't think there's too many people on the planet who aren't aware of what a healthy diet consists of. But there's a lot of misinformation too. I mean, I can go into, what constitutes a healthy diet to make sure you have adequate amounts of proteins, grains, fruits, vegetables, fat, dairy. I mean, these are all making a complete meal. The issue of food availability, food deserts, having to shop at the dollar store or having, stop at the convenience store. These are all real life issues for a lot of people. And, I actually, in preparation for this, I did do a little market research and went to a dollar store, and I was kind of pleasantly surprised to see what kind of foods that were available. Like, with this diet culture we have now, there's so much emphasis on, fresh fruits and vegetables and organic and all this. And you can go to the grocery store and buy yourself some canned vegetables or frozen vegetables or canned fruits that have long shelf life, and they are just as nutritious as fresh. And I'll let you in on a little secret. You go out west where these foods are being grown, and you oftentimes right next to the farm, you see a plant that takes that food as fresh as it can be right from the farm into the plant and can it. And so I would like to encourage people to be kind to yourself, and embrace the idea of eating several times a day, and if your food isn't perfect, if it's not, what you're reading online about the perfect diet, which there's no such thing. But if you're eating 3 meals a day and you're eating when you're hungry and your stomach is full when you walk away from the table, you deserve that. We all deserve that. And that's just one of those issues of self-care, self-compassion that I talk to everyone I talk to about nutrition is, don't put so much pressure on yourself that you have to eat the perfect diet, because nobody does. Nobody eats a perfect diet. And your health issues are not your fault. That's the other thing. If you have been diagnosed with diabetes, or if you've been diagnosed with hypertension, you're doing the best you can. I mean, I have hypertension. I'm a dietitian, and I'm fit, but we get things. And so, eat the best diet you can. I do have some more information. I'm sure that will come
Absolutely.
out. Yeah.
We're, I think that what you just said segues me into my next piece that I want to talk about. You mentioned food deserts, and that is something within even our own community in Joliet. We do see that there are some areas of having food deserts. So the next piece that I want to address each panelist with first is the barriers that the Black and Brown community face within all of these health challenges. And then lastly, I want to go back and just hit on some solutions and strategies and daily regimes that people could start to implement. So I'm going to come back to Tracy, and what I want to ask is, what is the biggest barrier in terms of physical health for the Black and Brown community? We know racism is the hurdle, but beyond that, what would be a barrier or some barriers to receiving good physical health care, or having that health care that you could even do for yourself within the Black and Brown community?
Yeah, my answer is real simple. Ourselves. We're our own barriers. I think self-care is essential to any component of stress. If I continue to pour out and never give back in, what am I doing? What am I creating, right? I want to just align it to an analogy of driving a car. You drive your car, you have to maintain that car. You can't drive that car and never put gas in it. You can't drive that car without maintaining the daily checkups, whatever it is for that car to be maintained. So, I'm not aligning ourselves to a car by no means, but just having an analogy to say that you have to put something back into something that you use all the time. And you use your body all the time in so many different areas of your life. So you have to put back into it, right? So how do I develop time to compartmentalize what can I put back in myself? What can I do for myself? What are some regimens that I can do to empower myself so that way the stressors of the day, the stressors of life don't take over, right? And take hold of myself in the day. So some of the things I had, kind of wrote out here just so I can share with the group is that during stressful times, what do we do to say, okay, how can I do something for myself? Even if it's something simplistic, something very simplistic in order to do self-care and self-love for ourselves. In order to do that, I talked about here, looking at ways of reading, maybe reading, and being able to read something that is putting myself in a better mindset, putting back into myself that's something more positive. It's all the negative energy that's going on in the world. How do I put back into myself something positive? Some people might say simplistically by, just going out and looking at nature, looking at flowers, being able to plant a flower. I mean, I don't want to take it where it's something that you have to do heroically for yourself, but something symbolic for you. What is symbolic for you? Taking time out to maybe going to church, speaking to someone as a pastor or minister in your church in order to, talk about all the things that you're dealing with and how do you put back into yourself. So you're there for your children, you're there for your husband, you're there for your wife. So, self-care is essential. Small things like taking a bath. I like to keep it simple. It's nothing mathematical about self-care. Being able to be in control of who you are is so, so important in these times. So I think the biggest barrier, if I had to say it, is ourselves, and being able to stopping and putting out to others and put back into ourselves. So that would be something I would say is a barrier.
I love that. As a yoga instructor, we have a saying, you can't pour from an empty cup. Mm-hmm. And it reminds me of what you were saying about make sure you fill your own tank. Mm-hmm. I love that. And
give what you don't have.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. And to Hector, we know, I know from just my own family, my own circle, mental health has such a stigma around it, with, being willing to get help and accept the help that's there. What do you feel, or what do you know as a professional is the biggest barrier for people, again, of the Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities? What is the biggest barrier that they may face in getting or receiving mental health aid or help? Mm-hmm. Counseling?
I think that there are a few explanations for this, and I want to zone in on a couple. Tracy's already mentioned it. It's ourselves. For BIPOC communities, again, bicultural, indigenous, people of color. So again, communities of color, communities that are multiracial. We're our own worst enemy, because mental health is this sort of. I like to liken it, if we treated it like physical health, where we would be is a different perspective. But every time we said, you know what, I'm just not feeling right, I'm gonna go talk to somebody and sort of work this out, the amazing experiences that we can have and benefit from that. Instead, what we say is, you know what, yeah, I have a bone sticking out of my arm, I'm gonna go get that checked out, and I'm gonna get that treated. If we treated mental health in that same way and said, that's a sticking out, it's fine, I'll just rub a little salt on it, throw a little dirt on it, it'll be fine. Give it a week, let's see what happens. Most folks tend to dismiss the seriousness and the impact that mental health issues, mental wellness, really want to start changing the language. When we talk about mental wellness, right? Because when we say mental health, we say mental illness, we start thinking in this very diseased way. Right? That's been the problem, is we think mental health, we say it's a disease. Oh no, somebody has depression, it's a disease. Mm-hmm. No, Everybody gets down. Everybody has a down day. Sometimes you just don't feel 100%. That's okay. That's normal. That's where you could talk to somebody and say, hey, you know what? I'm just not feeling it today. I'm not feeling me. I'm not feeling 100% Hector. Okay. You know what? That's okay to not feel that way. And it's okay to tell people, you know what? Nope. I'm not at 100% today. I'm just not. Because you know what? Today just is an off day. It just feels that way to me. But often we say, no, we have to persevere. Look how tough I am. Look at how much I can push through. And again, as Tracy has said, imagine pushing the car to the point that it starts to break down. It's just a little light. It's just one sensor. The headlight just went out. It's okay. The brakes don't work anymore. Mm-hmm. Well, at some point, you're going to start to say, I'm driving a vehicle that's going to get me to death. What are we doing to ourselves? When we say, you know what, the messages that I hear both racially and social justice wise, and the things that I do to myself, when do I start to say my car needs to maybe have the brakes worked on? I need to pump them. I need to, hey, let me turn off and talk to the mechanic. It might be nothing, but it might be something. If we get out of our own way and say, you know what, I'm just going to go do that, and I don't care what my grandma says. I don't care what my aunt says. I don't care what this person says, because it's about me. And right now, I need to do what's best for me. The other part is really the locating resources for mental health. Oftentimes people are, and I say this from experience, I worked in an area where within a 150-mile radius, I was the only center. Wow. So if you lived 150 miles out, you're not driving 150 miles in for a 1-hour visit. You might put off mental health. So sometimes you have to be creative and say, you know what, how can I do this in a way, and how can this person help me in a way that maybe still meets me without me having to take such a great link to see them. And again, the Zoom is a wonderful platform that's encrypted. We have a variety of different telehealth platforms that folks don't realize that, you know what, even if I may, on your phone, and I'm not showing it off because it's anything important, but if you've got a smartphone, you got a camera and a way to see somebody.
True.
And if we take advantage of that, there are so many things that we can do on a lunch break, after work. Sometimes even just sit in your car, warm it up for a little bit. I know I'm talking winter. I apologize. I'd love to live somewhere warmer. But, the warmness of your car, maybe take a little bit and talk to somebody. Take that minute and say, before I get home, I'm going to make an appointment for myself to say, hey, I want to get some stuff off my chest because I'm tired of having it there. So, I think those are kind of two of the biggest areas that I see, and often just taking advantage of that. Even right now in our pandemic, there's a lot of telehealth that is occurring for mental health, for mental health professionals. We're happy to see you, right? Yeah. So let that not be a barrier. We'll find a way. We'll even call you. Hey, we'll do phone visits. We'll do whatever it takes, but definitely take care of yourself.
I want to thank you for that, because I, having been to counseling myself and am proud of it, I think it's a great idea of, hey, what about 20 minutes on your lunch break? Call somebody. I would never, how simple, but I would never think of that. Also, in speaking with barriers, I want to again come back to Diane, because we talked about food deserts before, and I want to talk to you about the barriers in finding healthy food or good choices, or even not good choices, but just choices to fill your belly. What is some advice you would have for our viewers if they are living in an area where maybe they don't have transportation to drive all the way to Jewel or Walmart? And what would you recommend that they pick up real quick at a place like the dollar store or Dollar General or something, or a store similar to that?
Yes, that's a very good question. I would like to add something to what the others two have said about the biggest barrier,
yes,
being the individual. I've been a dietitian for 40 years, and that was always what I was taught and how I practiced. You know, I would encourage people to change behavior. This would be a better choice than that and all that. But just in the past couple of years, I've started reading more about the social determinants of health, and which there are many. Racism is a huge social determinant of health that a person has no control over. Implicit bias in the healthcare field with doctors and dietitians and nurses, and resources, and where people live, transportation. There are so many social determinants that affect the choices that people make. And in my career, I don't know of anybody who would say, you know, I choose to be unhealthy. That's my choice. I would rather be unhealthy than to be healthy. I don't think anybody makes that choice. So they're in their situation, they, you know, may or may not have the resources available to go to their car and call somebody. They might not have a phone. They might not have a doctor who will, you know, recommend that they get counseling. They might not, you know. So again, given that people are sometimes very limited in the resources that they have and having to deal with very, you know, limited choices at the store they're shopping at. I mentioned already canned fruits and vegetables, canned meats like canned tuna, canned chicken, peanut butter, beans like dried beans and peas, like a bag of lentils. You can buy a bag of lentils and make a giant pan of delicious soup, or, you know, like cheeses, eggs, milk, breads, pastas, rice. These are all, you know, basic, you know, pantry type foods that can have a long shelf life. Most of it, you know, you need some refrigeration. There are people who live in a single room that don't even have a stove and a refrigerator, you know. So these are people who can't make the choices that will make them healthier. So that's why it's, you know, they might have a little one burner stove to cook a can of Franken beans, you know, and this is some people's reality, you know. So it's not an ideal situation, but if I could recommend anything, it would be to still try to meet the basic needs of grains, fruits, vegetables. As a matter of fact, I have this. This is from my plate. I'm wondering
cool.
if you can see that. Yeah, just like if you could just envision a plate. You know, what do we put on our plate? We put on some meat or protein, or, you know, cheese, or, you know, some kind of a canned tuna or whatever, or peanut butter, and then there's grains, and then there's fruits and vegetables and milk. So it's a teaching tool that I have used a lot. You know, that used to be like the pyramid, or the, which, you know, you don't eat off a pyramid, eat off a plate. So plate method is much better. So if you could just kind of internalize that diagram in your head and say, these are the things that make a complete meal. And, you know, maybe it's a package of crackers with cheese on it, you know, whatever you can, you know, a can of sardines, you know. Yum. I love sardines.
I think it's great. We grew up eating tuna in our mac and cheese with some frozen peas.
Mac and cheese is another example.
Perfect. No, yes. Tracy, that's gross. Anyway.
Okay. So now that I've grossed out Pam with my childhood meals, I want to make sure I respect everyone's time and that we do get to some strategies and daily regimes that we can be adding in. So I want to go back and I want to ask each of our panelists for maybe two things every day, or if not every day, most days. What could our viewers implement into their lives? Could be something 5 minutes, 1 minute, whatever. Tracy, what could be two maybe quick and easy things that people could do for their physical health to improve their health every day?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. So two things I would say, free of charge, they are, but we talked about them earlier. Deep breathing. Deep breathing is essential for helping to, I look at it as breathing in the good energy and pushing out the bad energy. Bringing in good, positive things, reducing the stress out, right? So as you breathe, I would say deep breathing would be one of the things that are impactful, but really doing it in a way that is not, during the time when you are high stress under a lot of people talking to you and you having to facilitate a conversation, but deep breath when you're by yourself and having some alone time would be very, very essential for helping to bring back that self-care need. Another piece would be journaling, being able to jot down things to kind of talk through the day, talk through the stress, being able to support, some type of working strategy within yourself, because journaling really is a strategy. It's a strategy to facilitate how do I put down into writing what I just experienced, and you process, you actually metabolize what you're writing. So, journaling is a powerful tool that people minimized, but it really is something that has been a profound impact to stress and reducing stress, just to journal your day. These strategies don't take more than 10 minutes a day, 10 minutes out of your day. To more than 10 or 15 minutes could be sometimes counterproductive because you have a lot of other things that are happening within the competing priorities of the day. But journaling and deep breath would be two strategies that I would recommend to the audience to help combat some of the stress that are impacting our lives today.
So deep breathing, absolutely. And I have to thank you because I've never thought of journaling as a way to help my physical health, but I really appreciate that piece of advice. That's wonderful. And to Hector, what would be two things that you would suggest to our viewers that they could try to implement on, if not a daily basis, on, a regular basis to help them in terms of mental health?
Sure, yeah, and I think journaling is significantly awesome for mental health. I'm going to say it now. You write it down, and what you could do easily is if it's a thought you don't like, crumple it up and throw it away. Like, hey, you know what? I want to get rid of the thought. Great, throw it out. But I think you have to start with first acknowledging that it's there, right? We have to stop and say, all right, wow, what just happened, right? We have to slow ourselves down sometimes and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to take 10 seconds to just, what is going on, right? Like, wow, what did I hear? What am I thinking? What is happening? Because often we just go, and they say, I'm going to write it all down at the end. And we're trying to recall stuff. And you're like, wait, when did that happen? How did that happen there? Sometimes taking that 10 seconds and say, okay, you know what? I'm just going to take that quick. I'm going to take a note of this happened. And I'm going to come back to that when I write that down. The deep breathing is wonderful, but I'm a huge proponent of being active, right? Whether it's a walk, it's yoga, it's, if you're hitting a heavy bag and you're out there doing some exercise at a UFC gym or something, because that's where I used to go, hitting a heavy bag, getting that physical energy of what you're storing out to just really let yourself say, okay. And the other part is, if you don't know if you have a counselor available to you, I promise you, there are resources available to you, and I'm happy to link those and send those to Tracy and Pam, that you can always find somebody. And I promise you, we're available. We can go to your home. Some of us do. We can talk to you on the phone. We can do telehealth. We can see you in person in our offices. There's a variety of different ways that we can do this. And so I would always advocate, do not ignore your mental health and talk to a therapist so that we can ensure that yeah, you're being heard and understood because we value you as a person, right?
That's awesome. And yes, we would love to have each panelist link their favorite resource back to me and Pam, and we can link it with the video. That would be amazing. And Hector, I got to tell you, I'm a kickboxing girl at heart. I got my start in fitness with martial arts. So yes, hitting the air is a great stress reliever, or hitting a bag is a great stress reliever. Yoga, walking, all of it's fantastic. So yes, I will take you up on that offer to have any links sent our way. We'll take them. And to Diane, I would like to ask you a similar question. What could be two, I guess, nutritional or dietary strategies that our viewers could start to implement to maybe work towards better dietary health? Do you have any advice for us there?
I do, shockingly. Number one, I encourage everyone, eat 3 meals a day. Eat 3 meals a day. And if you can try to do it as consistently as you can, time-wise, even if you don't initially feel hungry, if you, sometimes we've done so many things that interfere with that hunger signal that we can't even recognize that hunger signal. So we go too long without eating. If you can try to get on an eating schedule where you eat, within an hour, a couple hours after you wake up in the morning, and then every 4 to 5 hours after that, and provide yourself with as much variety at those meal times as you can. I would like to go back to that HALT. I think the don't allow yourself to become too hungry, angry and lonely. I think a mental health, that's a mental health thing. The end of that word is tired. Don't allow yourself to get too tired. Get a good night's sleep as often as you possibly can, because that affects your nutritional health. It affects your emotional health. It affects your physical health. And it affects stress. So eat 3 meals a day, include as much variety as you can, and sleep. That's
awesome.
What I have.
Diane, do you have any links that you could
I
send
do.
in, Pam, so we could put them?
And, actually, I have a little handout, but I will send it to you.
I love it. Yay. And then to go back to Tracy, I didn't get to ask her about resources, but Tracy, do you happen to have a favorite website or source that you would be willing to share with us?
Oh, absolutely. I have a list of them here for you. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. But, I just want to also just plug in, don't be afraid to go to your local libraries as well. A lot of people, I have a list of things and resources, but, local libraries have a wealth of information when it comes to physical health, stress, components of a lot of the things we talked about today. So just, being able to just do something simplistic. I like to keep it simple because simplistic things in reality. So that's the way I think about it.
And Tracy, can I just mention one thing about one of the resources that I put on here?
Yeah.
It's www.snaped, SNAP as in the food stamp, education, from the USDA. I perused that website and I loved it for a couple of reasons. Number one, they break everything down, like on foods to purchase on a limited budget, whether you are a recipient of food stamps or not, which if you are, if you think you might be eligible, you should definitely apply and see if you are. But and it also has meal planning guide, shopping guide, recipes, and it was not like real diety. It was just healthy eating on a budget and time limiting recipes that you can prepare if you don't have a lot of time to do that kind of thing. So
that is great that they have that link out there for everyone.
I agree.
I'm gonna kick everything back to Pam to see if
Somebody's phone
Ms.
is
Pam
ringing.
had any questions or anything else she wanted to add here.
No, you know what? Actually, my role this evening was just really to listen to the experts, just to share the information. I want everybody to be able to hear this information. Because at the end of the day, in my opinion, health is wealth. Period. Health is wealth. So what I also want to just indicate too is that with Tracy, I didn't really, because she was hosting this, I want Tracy to share, what it is that you do and some of the things that you're going to do. She's going to talk about our virtual walk that I want her to share. And then even about the breathing, because a lot of things that you all were actually conveying, these are things that she actually does on a regular basis. And Tracy, what is your YouTube site that people can go on and actually see all of your different videos that you do?
Yeah, my YouTube channel is called Yoga Birdee Fitness, and Yoga Birdee is spelled with 2 E's, just like my name. So Yoga Birdee Fitness. I have a variety of videos on there that I filmed during the hardest of our lockdowns. And I want to mention that a lot of them are mid-intensity. So we know that doing mid-intensity cardio is one of the things that we can do to help us with stress. And this darn notification keeps going off. There we go. A lot of the experts mentioned walking. And a lot of the experts mentioned breathing as part of mindfulness. And our event that is also in conjunction with this panel is called Healing Illinois 1 Mile at a Time. It's a virtual walk, and registration is free on Run Sign Up. This is a walk that you can do by yourself or with your family as a way to keep socially distanced. And I will link that Run Sign Up link with this video as well. That will be on January 2nd of 2021. That sounds weird to say. And that'll be at 11 a.m. In conjunction with the race, I'm also going to be leading some mindfulness breath work after the race on Facebook Live. I'm also a 200-hour registered yoga teacher, and we're going to be doing some yoga breathing techniques to help us de-stress and with a little mind-body balance. So that's what's coming up next after panel. But before too much time gets away from me, I just want to say a thank you to each one of our panelists. Thank you to Dr. Tracy, Dr. Hector, to Diane Barnes. I appreciate you guys so much for all your expertise. And I want to say thank you again to Pam and New Day Employment Network for having me on to interview and do a little hosting.
Yes, great. Well, thank you all again. I appreciate it. We value your time. Time is money. So we value that. Have a wonderful weekend. And like I said, please share the links at the bottom of this, even for the walk. Maybe you can even do the virtual walk with your own families. You can share with, your nieces and nephews. We have so much that we're doing in the next few weeks with this topic. But our first topic, we appreciate you. Like I said, because we don't want to, continue to be sick, Tracy, with racism. We want to get healthy. We want to have variety of ways to be able to deal with this. Okay. All right. So have a wonderful weekend. And I know that some of you had some place to go. So I want to try to be mindful of the time, but go right ahead, Diane. You got about 30 seconds.
Should we send our links in the chat or to?
We'll just send it to Tracy. Send everything to
Okay.
Tracy. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Send it to Tracy. Yes. So thank you all. I appreciate it. Have a wonderful holiday season. Thank you for participating. Well. And I'm hoping that our team, our Facebook family and friends get a lot out of this conversation, because the whole goal is for them to start the conversation, to continue this conversation. So we may have you back soon, okay?
Wonderful.
Thank you.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Good night. Thank you.
Bye-bye.